Hey, what is going on? And welcome to another Strong by Design podcast. My name is Jared Haley, hosting for the first time today. Really excited to be with you all. If you haven't already done so, give us a 5-star, review because you think that we're awesome. Otherwise, just listen and enjoy. Really, there's no pressure there. But hey, man, it's really good to be with you guys today. I'm excited to have a good friend of mine, Dave Frazier, is on with me today. Dave and I go way back to our college years when we were in a band together, the Notorious Married Spud. Feel free to go check them out. That was a terrible... It was actually a really good, fun time. And Dave is currently pastoring at a church in Miami, Oklahoma. And how long have you been there, Dave?
We've been here 15 years now.
Oh, man. You've been there forever. I feel like I'm all over the place, and Dave's the grounded one between the two of us, I guess. I can't sit still.
I fear change, and I fear I'm risk averse at life.
Yeah, but I mean, so much has happened and so much has gone on in the 15 years that you've been there, and I know that you've been through a lot of lifestyle changes. You guys, you have 3 kids, and how old's your oldest now?
Cadence is 15. That's how I remember how long we've been in Miami. We moved like 2 weeks after she was born.
Oh my goodness. Holy cow, 15. How's that?
Yeah, 15,
I think I saw
15, 13, and 12.
Oh my goodness. And she's got her permit now?
Yep. She's nearly a licensed driver, and so it's, everybody got to watch out. She does a great job, though.
That's right.
She's a rule follower, and I'm grateful for that, unless we're in a hurry. Then it's like, okay, you're not going to drive today.
Yeah. But my wife does the same thing to me, so I think that's fair. Yeah, get out. I'm driving. No, it's good. I know that you guys have been through all kinds of different stuff in regards to fitness, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Excited to hear a little bit about your fitness journey, both you and your wife, Megan. I know that she's kind of gone through a lot of fitness changes and things along those lines as well. Something that actually inspired me a long time ago to get into photography is watching Megan, because she was starting to do her own photography studio and different things along those lines. But I know recently that's changed for her, right? She's no longer has the photography studio, but she's doing other stuff. What all is Megan up to these days?
Yeah, so she started getting into photography. I mean, she always loved it, and then once we started having kids, it was like, boy, getting photos taken is expensive, and so it was like, well, let's just figure out how to do it ourselves. And she has a great eye for it, and spent, probably the last 6 or 7 years was pretty well full time on that, as well as taking care of raising kids and being involved in their schools and stuff. And but let's see, it's been longer than that, but it was in about 2016, a local or a gym owner that we knew from another town moved to Miami and brought his gym here. And so she was day one personal training client. And it was like, she was always an athlete when she was younger. And then as we had kids and were, growing our family and stuff, she was so focused and doing that so well that she just didn't quite have the outlet or the opportunity to take care of herself in that way. And so when she started doing that, started training, she trained for a while, and then she got her nutrition dialed in, and then a lot began to happen for her. She lost a bunch of weight, and just her confidence grew, and she just kind of found a love for that in the competitive side of her, and just her athletic inner self kind of came back. And so that's been really fun to watch her do that. So now the balance has really shifted to where she's training clients from 6:30 in the morning till like 2:30 in the afternoon every weekday. And so she's doing that a whole lot, and she's backing off on photography quite a bit because the schedule works a lot better with our family. When I'm home from work and the kids are home from school, that's typically when she'd have to go take photos. And so now it's more beneficial for us that she would be home in the evenings, and so we can do family stuff. And so she's really made that shift, and I'm just really proud of her for leaning into it. And she's always loved people and making a difference. And so with her training, I mean, she's experienced a lot of transformation with her clients, and that brings her a lot of joy. And so she's making a really big difference doing that. So that kind of got our whole family into it, hooked up at the gym and working out and having that be a priority for us. And so it's just been a really cool journey.
Yeah. And when a mama changes the nutrition, it changes the nutrition for everybody.
That's for sure.
What kinds of things? I'm just curious. I mean, we are kind of going through our own, transformation of what we're eating and trying to be smart about what we're eating. I'm curious, what kind of major changes did she do and are you doing?
So one of the biggest things was paying attention to our macronutrients. And, we always heard, or the conventional wisdom is, calories in, calories out. If you want to lose weight, you just got to burn more calories than you consume. And that's true. Like, that's the science side of it. But there's also ways that you can hack that a little bit more by paying attention to your balance of macronutrients. And so that's proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and the balance, the percentages of those that you're consuming within that caloric intake. And so one of the biggest things was just eating more protein. As we've grown in this and followed all kinds of different coaches, nutritional coaches, trainers, things like that. The really kind of the sweet spot seems to be trying to eat at least your body weight in grams of protein
per day.
Which, when you start tracking per day, when you start tracking that, oh my gosh, it's so much protein. And when we go, when we eat places, you're not going to get that much, and protein's expensive. When you're talking a bunch of beef, it's pricey. And so it's way easier to have processed foods or to have, carbs lying around and fill up on those kinds of things. But the more, that is going to aid in building lean muscle mass. And so the more muscle mass you have, the more efficient you can burn fat. And so we've tried to balance keeping our caloric intake at somewhat of a deficit for a portion of the time, and then balancing that with trying to eat in a little bit of a surplus at different times to try to gain more muscle, but always trying to, dial that in a little bit and make sure that you're getting enough protein to build that muscle.
Yeah.
And then also eating enough carbs to have the energy to work out and live life. And, we really look at it like it's a functional thing. We're trying to live a great life and be active with our family and in our community. And if we're fueling our body properly, then that's going to happen a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's interesting with protein. I know as Christiana, she's been doing a detox and working on getting, eating correctly and things like that. And it's interesting how even with protein, it helps with your hunger cravings and that hunger curve, right? Where if you're eating a bunch of, you could get full, but then you find yourself hungry again in an hour. Where if you're eating enough protein, it helps curve that, especially at night. I think, eating enough protein at night, you're not having that hunger strike at 9 o'clock before you're ready to go to bed, which is a terrible time to eat. Unless, I don't know, I'm trying to gain weight, and so anytime I can eat, I'm eating. It doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna try to put it in, and it's fun because a couple of the guys here, Chris and Mike, they'll offer to bring me like a burrito during the day, and they'll say, "What burrito do you want?" I said, "Whatever is going to make me fatter." So they're helping do their part and bulking me up for Thanksgiving, but it's really really awesome. I know that. Go ahead.
Well, I was saying a big part of our transformation as a family is readjusting our relationship with food. Sometimes there's this almost toxic relationship with food where either you're obsessive and you're like, oh my gosh, I ate a giant burrito, so I've got to go do 3 hours of cardio. And you look at things as like punishment, or you can say food is just fuel, and if I want to, just like when I fuel my car, I want to put good fuel in it to make it run properly.
I just want cheap fuel,
So
Dave.
I want to. Well, these days, right? Yeah, and maybe if I'm driving like another car, somebody else's fancy car or something.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I mean, just having a healthy relationship with food is a game changer. That it's just fuel
And it tastes good.
for sure. If it when cooked properly.
That's right. No, that's actually been a big piece of it. This program that Christiona's in is like, if you don't enjoy what it tastes like, you're not going to eat it. And so they're all about, make it taste good. Like don't feel like you have to eat plain chicken and rice with no seasoning, because you're going to get bored of it and you're going to quit and you're just going to go back to what you're doing before. And so Christiona's had a lot of fun with just experimenting with flavors and spices and, seasonings and different things like that. And she always does an amazing job. She has an incredible palate anyway. And so then she gets to kind of play and toy with things, and we're all eating better because of it. So it's a good thing.
That's awesome.
But I know, so Megan changed, and obviously, like I said, a lot of times some of that stuff will spark with our spouses, but it was a big deal for you too to start changing how you were taking care of yourself as well. When did you start really diving into fitness? Was that around the same time, or did it take a little bit?
So, she started in 2016, and I was actually in the process of training for a marathon at the time. So I've always been pretty decent, I guess, since like my 20s or whatever, at just endurance stuff. So long distance running was a thing that I was decent at, and I thought, well, hey, I'd run 6 miles. I go, well, maybe I could run a little further. And then a friend of ours, Adam Monahan, was an ultra marathoner and was one that was encouraging me to run further and further. And so I finally signed up for my first marathon in 2016. And so that was like,
just to clarify, a marathon is how long?
26.2 miles.
Okay, got it.
That's a long ways.
Got it. Continue.
So
yes, sorry.
I signed up for my first marathon, and so I was training for that, and it was like, it was spring of 2017, I think, something like that. And so she started in 2016, but I was still training. So I was like, well, I don't want to start working out and get off my training plan, so I'll wait till I'm done with the marathon, and then I'll jump in at the gym. And now you got to understand, I was the kid in high school that I was familiar with the weight room, but I was the guy who was dodging the coach. Like I was like trying to get by with the least amount of work possible. My brother was the athlete. He was the one tearing it up in the weight room and taking creatine and getting massive, and I was just trying to hide out so I could go play rock and roll with my friends later on. And so I didn't have like this great confidence going into a gym. I was a little intimidated by it, but once I got started, we do group fitness, which it's like CrossFit based stuff, but it's not a CrossFit affiliate. So it's functional fitness, and it's in a group class, and just found myself in 2017 starting to work out and just really enjoyed it. Enjoyed how I felt, enjoyed the people, like the community side of it was a huge thing. And then the discipline of it. Like I am a fan of being disciplined in things because it's not natural to me. But when I have a goal or I have people expecting something of me, I do a lot better. And so it was at that point that I started working out there. And then, I think it was probably around the same timeline that when Megan got serious about her nutrition, we started doing that as well. And so I ran the marathon in 2016, then I ran another one in 2018. And it was different at that point because I had this group fitness thing. And so I didn't really want to get away from that. So I'd have to kind of, I wouldn't go work out. So I would have to try to get my miles in for my training plan for the race. And I missed the group fitness stuff. So I didn't train very well for that. I didn't get all the miles in that I really should have because I just wanted to be back with the group. And I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit about how that race went. It didn't go very well. Side note there, but yeah, so we got really, even today, I mean, I went this morning, to our group fitness class and, really really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. First of all, in high school, I never went into a gym, so at least you were there. So that's a plus. I was
Yeah.
terrified to lift because I was, especially in high school, I was tiny, and so you'd have these guys lifting, huge amounts of weights or whatever, and I'm like, I hope I can lift up the bar, and that's embarrassing. Nobody wants to go to the gym and
Yeah.
be the guy that everyone's watching how terrible your form is and telling, they're smirking or laughing or whatever, and so it's easier just not to do it and not to go. And I'm actually disappointed now that I've gotten more into it. I feel like, I was an athlete and I was naturally good at things, but I could have been that much better if I would have put in the time to lift a little bit. I just think even playing soccer in college, having a little bit more muscle, to move around in the box and do different things, it would have benefited me, but I was too afraid to even approach it. And some guys did go. I mean, we had a little makeshift gym at Barkley, but that people would go lift at. But I wouldn't dare go, because it was an embarrassing thing. So I guess maybe that's an encouragement of anybody listening, is that you got to start somewhere. I thought, something that you said is, once you get into it, it really starts to change your perspective on things, and you realize people aren't as scary as you thought they were, maybe. And then you do start to get that accountability. You start to get that community that I think is really important. And so, I'm glad that you touched on that too. And I'm curious if you can just tell me, I know that you've ran 3 total marathons and you've trained a little bit different for each marathon. And so I have no idea I run if I'm playing a sport, I'm happy to go run and pay attention to whatever else is going on. But running just to run, and my goal of being able to run a further distance, it's never been appealing to me. So I have no idea what even goes into, okay, I'm training for a marathon, what do I do? So maybe you could just start at the beginning with, how did you originally start training for marathons?
So that's a good question. My first race in 2016, I was just running a lot. I had no ambition of running a race. And we were at a youth pastors conference or like a retreat in Osage Beach, Missouri. And our friend Adam was there, and him and I went out to run, and there was this like brand new highway that had just been paved and wasn't open yet. And so we're running, everybody's like shopping at this outlet mall, and him and I went for a run, and it was the coolest experience running on a brand new paved highway with no cars around. And that was like the furthest I'd ever run. I think it was like 6.5 miles or something like that. And I just, like I was saying, I just kind of pushed myself to go, hey, I wonder if I could run a little bit further. And I, had a crazy thought, if I could run this far, then I guess I'll keep on going. And so that was, something that I thought, well, if I'm good, then I could just kind of keep increasing. And the recommendation is to add about 10% to your distance every week. And so I just tried to keep adding 10% to my distance. And now that first marathon, I'd run a half marathon a while before that.
That's 26.2 divided by 2.
That's 12.1.
There you go.
But I just got into it, and as I kept increasing my distance, the first one I was younger. Like mid-20s is a different story, or I guess early 30s is a different story than late 30s. And I still had, and I wouldn't want to admit that until I've experienced this. I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's a difference. And so I could just push my mileage, and ended up running really well. That first marathon, I ran the whole thing except for at mile 25, I stopped and walked for like a quarter of a mile. And that was my big thing. I was like, I want to run the whole thing. And not everybody does that. Some people will do a run-walk method, and they alternate between those. But I wanted to do that. Well, I got to mile 25, and I couldn't hang on anymore, and didn't really know the course very well. Didn't know if I was getting close to the end. And then finished with a really respectable time. It was like 4:15 or something like that, 4 hours and 15 minutes. And so, it was just keep going, read a lot of articles. And you've got to fuel properly while you're training and while you're on the course and stuff like that. But the prep for a marathon.
What is fueling properly for a marathon?
So on a marathon, you got to have carbohydrates, like fast acting carbohydrates, every 45 minutes to an hour or so, because your muscles have glycogen stores, and that's what your energy comes from. And so they say in 45 minutes to an hour of sustained exercise, then those glycogen stores are depleted, and so you got to fill them back up again to keep going. And so they have these packets. They're called GU, and it's just like they have random flavors, and you just keep them in your pocket and you just squirt them in. It's almost like a soft serve kind of a texture. They're not very tasty, but it gives you just enough energy to keep going. And so that's a common thing that's used. And so I would train with those. When I found a training plan online, and it was like a 18-week training plan or something, where you're running 5 or 6 days a week, with a rest day, 2 rest days built in, and your Saturdays are your long runs, and you increase the distance methodically, but you're running 3 to 5 miles for the first quarter of the plan, and a day in the first couple of weeks, and then you increase to 5 to 8 miles a day in those middle ones, and then the end you're supposed to taper down a little bit. So I just it's running a lot. I'll get there's more detail later on, but getting your fueling strategy figured out. What am I gonna eat goo? How am I gonna drink? How much water am I gonna consume? How am I gonna replace electrolytes and things like that? So you kind of think through all that stuff, and there's tons of resources online. And so my first one, I was young and didn't have to stretch, didn't have to think about much. I just got out and ran. Other than hearing other people that had run marathons that said, hey, you got to make sure you're fueling every 45 minutes or so. I was like, okay, I can do that. And so that was basically the guidance that I had. Run a lot of miles and make sure that you have something to replenish your sugars, and that was it. And it worked really well the first time. Second time, though, was 2018. And so I guess we'll kind of just get into that story, because
Sure.
This was kind of what was the springboard for making me want to run it again this year. It was the Oklahoma City Marathon, and it's a huge race. I mean, it's like 20,000 of my closest friends packed in by the memorial, the Oklahoma City bombing memorial. And so it's a race to remember kind of a thing. And so in training for that one, I probably did a 15 to 18 week training plan. And just kind of tried to increase my mileage, and thought I've always been the kind of guy that's like, well, if they say you should run 10 miles, I'd figure 12 is probably good. And so I just kept going, and I wanted to see if I could, really do that distance well. And so it was like a couple weeks before the race, and I ran 24 miles or something like that. And as I've learned, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to hit your peak at like 21 miles 3 weeks before the race, and then taper back, do like 13 the next week, and then 8 the next week, and then it's race week for your long runs. But I was dumb. I was like, I'm just going to push it. And on those long runs at like mile 18, I bonked. And that's it's a funny word, but it's an official term where it's like you hit a wall, and it's like, I'm not going to make it. And so I wasn't in good shape. I was heavy. I was like running at 220 pounds, which they say your joints absorb 3 times your body weight on each impact. And so I was doing some damage to myself on that. And was in bad shape. Didn't run properly. Didn't think about what I was eating, because there's this weird thing that when you run for, 3 hours and you think, oh my gosh, I've just burned 1,500 calories. I'm going to go eat whatever I want. And so, yeah, you can have the calories, but if you're not feeding yourself properly, then you're not going to get the quality food that's actually going to heal you and help you be stronger and better for the next time you run. So my training was bad. Like I said earlier, I wanted to be back in my group fitness classes. So I would do those some and not really get my mileage in. I'd sleep in instead of get up and run. And it was a bad deal. And
what did you eat at the end of it then?
At the end of the race?
Yeah.
Oh man. So when you cross the finish line, they're shoving food in your face. There's like all these food options. So, of course there's bananas and water, but then there's like Carl's Jr. cheeseburgers. I'm like, sweet, I'll eat that too. And then there's like chocolate milk. Yeah, I'll drink that. And there's Gatorade. I mean, I was eating everything and I felt like garbage, like 2 days after the race. Like, I'm miserable right now.
That's awesome.
It was so bad. So bad.
Why didn't that picture hit Insta?
Right, I know, exactly. At the end of that, I just was like, no one should ever run this distance. Like, this is a dumb idea that anybody would be out and do this to their body, because it must be the race's fault. It's got to be this distance that is the problem. And I lived that lie for 4 years, or 3.5 years or whatever. And then I was, I'm susceptible to marketing emails just like everybody is, I guess. And so I got an email from an activewear like clothing company that they had a video on this guy talking about how to prepare for a marathon. And I guess there was always that thing in my mind, like, I like the challenge. I want to do, find something to push myself or whatever. So I watched the video, and it was a performance chef in New York City. He's from Australia. His name's Dan Churchill. Has a podcast called The Epic Table. Create like super great social content. I really like him a lot. But in this video, he kind of outlined proper nutrition, proper hydration, training plans, and how to have a great race day. And it got me thinking, like, I sat on it for a few days and thought, you know what? I don't think it was the race's fault. I think it was my fault that I didn't do it right. And so I made the decision. It was like, I don't know, it was last summer, I think, or maybe last fall. I thought, you know what? I need to give it another try and see if I can redeem the experience, but I'm going to do it very differently. And so at the same time, our gym has been transitioning to having a lot more guys and girls doing bodybuilding competitions. And while I have zero desire to do any of that, I don't have the physique for it or the DNA for it. But I don't think that, there was something fascinating to me about having this window where you're doing everything you eat, everything you do is building towards this goal of peaking at the right time, and whether it's competition or a race or whatever. And so I thought, I can do 12 weeks. 12 weeks of dedication is not too bad. I can do it. And so I went online and found a 12-week race plan or training plan. It was this, I forget the name of it. I'll try to send you the link. You can put it in the show notes. But this guy had tons of great free resources that were really helpful. And so I followed that plan. And with a 12-week plan, they say, you shouldn't really plan to break any records or anything, but this will get you to the finish line and help you be okay. And that was really my goal. I was like, I want to get to the finish line regardless of my time. I want it to be respectable, but I want to get to the finish line and feel good. And I knew that there were things that I was going to have to do differently to make that happen. And so I signed up for the Oklahoma City Marathon again. It was just the timing worked out perfectly to be the end of April. So I knew that starting in January, I'd have to cut some weight because I knew that I was too heavy before. So I gave that first month to really devote myself to trying to cut weight. My coach at the gym gave me an eating plan that really helped me. And he's training bodybuilders and stuff. So he knows, he's really smart and knows all that stuff. But gave me something that really worked for me. And so I followed the plan.
How hard is that to follow a plan like that? When wife, 3 kids, and all of a sudden you're trying to do this plan that's different. How difficult is that?
It wasn't so bad because it's a lot of the stuff that we eat anyway. It was just certain portions at certain times, really. So it was like 2 eggs and 4 egg whites and some spinach in an omelet for breakfast. And then like a protein shake mid-morning, and then 6 ounces of some kind of protein, some veggies, and sourdough bread for lunch. Another protein shake in the afternoon, and then 8 ounces of protein, some rice and veggies for dinner, and then like some kind of Greek yogurt for like a snack before bed. So those are things that we eat all the time. And so I was familiar with it, and we would just cook up on weekends. We just cook up a bunch of steak or a bunch of chicken or a bunch of turkey or whatever, and we just have it and reheat it. And thankfully, with my job, I'm able to come home and make my food at lunch and not have to go eat fast food all the time. So that was really helpful, and it helps our whole family. Because then everybody's going, yeah, sweet, I'll eat some chicken and some veggies and some rice, and it tastes good and we like it. And so it kind of, even for the kids, it makes it a lot easier. So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like a sacrifice or anything.
For your protein shake, is it straight powder with water and milk, or what do you use? Do you put anything else in your shake?
So we use a product called Redcon MRE Light. And it's an animal protein. I found that whey protein doesn't settle real well with my stomach. And so it's just a powder, but it's an animal-based protein. And so our vegans and vegetarians in the audience may not like that very much, but it seems to work for me. And so, it's just add water and just a shaker bottle. And I'll have it's like 50 grams of protein. So it's 2 scoops of protein and water. And I think it tastes good. My kids,
I was going to say, does it taste good?
But I think,
yeah,
I think it's awesome. It's
I usually put protein in with milk because I figure milk will make it a little bit more. I don't know if it does better than water or not. But then I add fruit. Some whatever I can do to make it taste good. I do peanut butter in there. Yep. Christiana just got me this peanut butter natural powder stuff that is supposed to add more protein.
Oh, is it PB
which
Fit?
is really, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Sounds right.
I like that stuff.
I'm really bad at bringing stuff with me, and so it's sitting by the door for me to bring in for a week. But I'll get here eventually. But my coworker Steve was telling me that it's cheating. He's like, it's supposed to taste bad. That's how you know it's working. And so he gives me a hard time.
If it doesn't taste good, you're not going to eat it.
That's right. Exactly. So I like throwing like frozen fruit instead of using ice. That way it makes it nice and cold. Or if a banana's getting old, throw a banana in there, or mix some spinach in there as well. So I was curious if you did anything outside of just the powder and water.
Yeah, if I wasn't at work in that time, if I was home, then I think I probably would add some fun stuff to it. But I'm also now I'm dialing it back to just 1 scoop of protein, so I'm only getting 25 grams because I'm trying to be in a bit more of a deficit right now. After the race or during the end of the race, you got to consume a lot more calories because you're burning so much, and to kind of refuel everything. So when the race was over, then I was trying to kind of taper back down. And then we've done some traveling and stuff. So I'm really trying to lock in to a deficit for the next, actually another 12-week window. I'm trying to go, okay, I'm going to do this and tighten it back up. So I'm only doing 1 scoop of protein during my mid-morning and mid-afternoon snacks, I guess.
That's good. So this last time, kind of diving into it and taking a new strategy. Did it restore your confidence in the marathon? Where are you at?
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of finish that story. As I was training for it, I was feeling really good, and I was really disciplined through that whole time period, and just going, 12 weeks, I can do it. And I hit all my miles, and I did step away from our gym for that amount of time, and that was tough. I was also in a musical that during that season, so I was rehearsing every evening for a musical, and running in the mornings and running on Saturdays and stuff. So had I not had that added thing going on, I would have probably done more like weight training in the evenings or the afternoons. And so, next time I do this, I'll probably add that in, because having added muscle is a benefit to running that distance, to try to stay strong and straight, to keep your joints healthy and everything. So, but yeah, I did the training, and my goal with the race, like I said, was just to finish feeling well. But I also had this thing in my mind to go, it'd be really cool to do a 4.5 hour marathon, because the 2018 marathon I ran a 4 hour and 45 minute. marathon, and it was really bad. And like mile 18, I thought they were going to leave me for dead on the course and just roll it up and, say I'll live in Oklahoma City on the streets because I can't move for the rest of my life. And so I just was, it was a time that I wasn't real proud of. And there's some people that would go 4:45, that's great. But I didn't feel great about it. And so I thought in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'm going to feel good, but I'd love to do 4.5 hours. So, speed up to the race, and even following my plan, having that taper the last 3 weeks where I was running fewer and fewer miles, there was this fear in the back of my mind going, I'm going to lose all my my distance, all my endurance that I've been training for 3 weeks. I'm not going to run those distances. I didn't understand that your body has that capacity already, and it's just healing itself so that when it's showtime, you can be at your peak performance, So I got to the race and started off really well. There's a big crowd of people, and you're in downtown Oklahoma City, and music playing, and it was a really exciting environment. And I looked at my watch, like mile 1, and I was like, I came out way too hot. There's way too much energy here. So I spent like the next 5 or 6 miles going, slow down, just slow down, and really trying to manage my pace a lot more. That's something I didn't do very well on the previous race. Is just trying to have this number in mind, trying to get about a 10 to 10.5 minute mile to start, and paying attention to my splits, which is, the speed of the pace of each mile. I wanted to have negative splits, which means that each mile you increase and get faster and faster. So I had that in my mind. I thought, okay, I need to start slow enough so that I can increase my speed by the end, because it's a long, 26.2 miles. I got to do this for quite some time now. And so in my mind, 4.5 hours would be really cool. I get to about mile 19 or so, and I'm pushing it. I'm like running about a 9-minute mile. And I thought, you know what? If I haven't died by now, I can probably keep this up. And so I thought, I'm just going to keep going, and kept running. And Oklahoma City has these really beautiful neighborhoods you run through. So I was able to be distracted looking at all the neat homes and stuff. And then there was a pretty significant downhill. So I was just striding out in these downhills. I hit, Megan was looking at my pace, and she was like, I hit like an 8.5 minute mile on mile 23 or something like that. It was just crazy. And then there's this steady incline for 2 miles where you're just going slow and steady. And it was just a mind game at that point in time, where you just got to keep going. So I just got to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving, and not think about how much it's a bummer right now. And when it was all said and done, I came around the corner on this last straightaway and just was sprinting with all I had, which looked funny because I didn't have much left in the tank, so it wasn't much of a sprint. But in my mind, I was going very fast. And so yes. I finished at 4 hours and about 14 minutes, which was, beat my previous time. The first marathon time was 15 minutes faster than I had hoped to be, like in my secret goal. And by the end, sure, my feet hurt, my knees hurt, but I felt really, really good. I had a different fueling strategy this time. I didn't use goo. I was trying to pay attention to my rehydration as well, and my electrolytes and stuff. And so I used a product called Tailwind, which is like, it's a liquid. You mix it with water. So it's like a powder, you mix it with water, and it's a carb source, but it also has electrolytes in it to help replenish a lot of what you're losing through sweat. And so Megan would meet me every 5 miles. She'd have a new shaker bottle for me. She'd pass it off, and I would drink it, and the next mile I'd hand it off to her. And then so 4 miles later, she'd hand me another one. And so that was really great to have her and the kids as my team to help me with my fueling. But I felt like, man, it was a total game changer to have that. I felt good. My stomach felt good, which sometimes with the goo product, it kind of sits heavy in your stomach. And on these marathons, it's crazy because people are out in front of their houses handing out food. Like they're handing out mimosas and beer and donuts and
it's for the walkers.
It's crazy. And I guess, and the first time I was like, sweet, free food, I'll just take everything. But this time I followed the mantra, nothing new on race day. That's what I kept reading over and over again. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do anything new outside of what I've trained. I'm just going to stick with it. And so by the end, the method proved itself. And I walked away from it going, you know what? It was totally my fault before. And there are ways to do this to feel really good at the end. And so now my sights are set on, oh my gosh, what else could I do next? Could I do could I do a sub 4 hour marathon? Could I do a triathlon? Could I, what's the next thing for me? And I'm optimistic about it, that whatever I do, I'm going to train for it properly, and it's going to be a great experience. So
do you have an idea of something that you'd like to do?
Oh yeah. I've thought about doing triathlon for a while, and it's funny because I'll think really heavy about them when I'm driving somewhere for a significant amount of time. Like we were in Mexico over spring break, and on the way back, I was like going, "Yeah, I could totally do a triathlon. I could do an Ironman, which is like a full marathon. You swim like 5 miles and ride a bike for 100 miles or something like that." And then when I got home, I thought about the reality of that. I was like, "That sounds miserable. No way I want to do that." But I think like an Olympic triathlon, an Olympic distance where it's like you run a half marathon, you swim a mile, you ride like 50 miles or something like that. I feel like that would be something fun to challenge myself to try to do. So who knows?
Yeah.
And my kids are at the age to where I don't want to spend a ton of time. I don't want to take a lot of time away from what we're doing. Our evenings are pretty booked. And so I feel like there will be a season where I could invest a lot more time into something like that. But for now, I'll be 40 next year. And so maybe doing a triathlon when I'm 40 years old would be pretty fun, but not an Ironman or any ultra marathons or anything. Those aren't interesting to me.
Yeah. I'm curious. For me, like I said, when it comes to running, it's never something that I'm like, ooh, that'll be fun. I always felt like actually, cause we would go on, there'd be like pastor retreats and, especially all of the Barkley guys, if they were there, it's like, hey, we're going running. I'm like, well, I'm kind of the odd man out. You guys have fun. And they're like, come on, it'll be great. And I'm like, good. It never appealed to me, And so I'm curious, what is the draw for you when it comes to running? Because you have to be in it, right? Your heart has to go, yes, I love this, or else there's no way that you're gonna. It goes beyond the challenge, right? There has to be some sort of joy there that you're drawn to, and then in those challenging moments when it feels like, man, I don't know how I can continue. Where does your mind go?
Those are good questions. I think that some people are community runners where they love to have someone with them to keep them company, to talk to them and stuff. I'm not that guy. I would much rather just run by myself. And I think
shut up! I'm running a race.
I think part of it is my introvert side. I'm a bit of an ambivert, I think, or maybe leaning more towards being an introvert, to where I just like
a what trovert, an ambivert.
Ambivert, where you're both introvert and extrovert.
That was kind of like ambidextrous.
Ambidextrous.
Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm tracking. I'm there. An ambivert.
Yeah, I like the solitude to it, and I don't listen to music when I run. I listen to audiobooks or podcasts, and so if it's a book that I really am enjoying and look forward to listening to, then I can't wait to get out and run. And to have that time to do that. And I typically, I go early in the morning before everybody's awake. And it's just a good thing that I really love. Now, and I also feel like I'm just naturally kind of good at it. Like, I'm not going to run the Boston Marathon. I'm not that kind of an endurance athlete. But it's always been just kind of the thing that I can do. And I feel good about that. And so that's part of a draw, too, is that it's something that I feel like I can be successful at. And I don't know if it feels exclusive because there's like less than 1% of the population has run a marathon or something. And then the more you run, the less, the smaller that gets. And so it feels a little bit like, hey, it's something special. I'm part of a group that is, not everybody. And so that feels kind of neat. But yeah, definitely I like the solitude, and I like running in new places and seeing new things. And then when I've gone back to places like Oklahoma City or, places that I've run other races and stuff, like being able to look around and go, oh, I remember that. I remember that turn. I remember where I saw that place and thought, oh, that, that looks cool. Or it just triggers a fun memory for me. So some people might say it's sick. My wife does not like distance running whatsoever. And so, it's not for everybody, but I feel like it's kind of my thing now.
Yeah, that's cool. So, and then the second part of that was the challenge. So, I mean, you're kind of pushing against it. You're fighting with your own self. What do you do in those moments? How do you push through?
Yeah, I think a big thing that helps me is distraction. Being distracted from the pain or the boredom. I mean, it does get to a point where it's just boring to be running for, 3.5 hours,
5 minutes.
4 hours.
I mean, 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Right. So, if you have something that is stimulating, whether it's a book or a podcast, that's helpful. Another thing is that I don't feel like, people who have not run those distances, they a lot of times think that it's like, you just got to go fast and your body's just going to get so tired. Well, really the key is to just go slower. If you feel like, oh, I'm just not going to make it, you're either going too fast or you've been going so long you need some fuel to keep going. They say you should be able to run a conversational pace for a long time. And so as long as you can keep a conversation going, and that's different for everybody, but it doesn't necessarily have to hurt so bad and get to that point where it's like, I just got to push through this, from my experience, if I get to that point, that means I'm probably going too fast. So just slow down.
Or eating wrong.
You're eating wrong. Yeah. It's like that cheeseburger is just sitting in the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you didn't grab the Carl's Jr. at the end of this last race?
Not this one. I gave all the food they gave me to my kids because I knew I had this delicious oatmeal waiting for me afterwards.
Mm-hmm. I do like a nice oatmeal. That's good.
Yeah. It was like my treat every week after my long runs on Saturdays. It's oats, hemp seeds, chia seeds, frozen blueberries, a scoop of protein, almond butter, and then a couple strawberries and a banana, some pure maple syrup. It's like carb heaven, and it's just unreal. It's so good.
Are you still rocking the chai tea?
Every day, man. I had one this morning. But I've changed it up a little bit. So, I used to always do like the concentrate, like you get at Starbucks or whatever, the chai latte. But now I do more like a London fog. I don't know if you're familiar with those, where it's brewed tea with some steamed milk in it, and then I do sugar-free vanilla. So I do fat-free Fairlife milk. So it's dairy something. I don't know, lactose-free. That's what it is. So I mean, it's still a cow, but so I do fat-free milk, sugar-free vanilla, and it's like 80 calories, and it's just my treat. It's the thing that that holds onto my soul.
Christiana was a barista for a little bit, and so she was bringing home the London Fog. I like the London Fog, but I hate chai tea. Like, she'll try to sneak chai into something. Oh yeah, it's horrible. Oh man.
Poor guy.
She's done it. She'll be like, "You gotta try this," and I'm like, "Does this have chai in it?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "How did you know?" I think that she thinks I'm just being stubborn because I want to refuse to like chai tea, and I'm like, "No, I legit don't like how it tastes."
It's funny because Megan's kind of that way with coffee with me. Like, she's like, "I wish you liked coffee," and I'm like, "I wish I liked coffee too, but I feel like it tastes terrible." Yeah. And she's like, someday, maybe we'll drink coffee together. And I'm like, when I already have a hot drink that I know I love, I really struggle with giving that up for like 90 days to try to like something I don't like right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, is Christiana doesn't really like coffee either. But once she started learning about coffee and learning about what some companies out there do to their beans to ruin it, if it tastes burnt, they didn't do it right, So people are like, "Oh, I don't like coffee because it tastes burned," or it tastes bitter. And there's always going to be some of that bitterness to it. But when it's done right, there's this drip coffee that I had recently that I didn't have to put any sugar in it or cream at all because it just tasted so good just the bean. And I'm like normally like, yeah, give me some creamer, at least some cream just to kind of thicken it up a little bit, and definitely some sort of sugar. But I was like, man, this is really, really good. And it turns out that the guy is roasting his own beans, and he's doing it in a way that is the right way to do it. So I don't know. I would say don't give up on your endeavor. But I'm with you too. If I go to a restaurant, 8 times out of 10, I'm ordering chicken something because I just know I'm gonna like it, and I always get a hard time. Why are you eating chicken? And I'm like, well, because it's not as expensive as the steak, and I know that it's gonna be good. So back off. Let me have my chicken. Oh man. Well, Dave, it's so good to connect with you. I feel like I haven't seen your face, in a really long time, and so it's really good to actually see your face. And if you had one encouraging word to say to someone, maybe they're thinking about running a marathon, or maybe they've never thought about running a marathon, and there's something that you say, what's that encouraging word you'd give to someone to say, this is why you should do this, or this is I don't know, whatever you might want to say to somebody.
Yeah, I think that I would say you can do it. I believe anybody can do it. Can run an endurance race, whatever distance it is. Everybody's at a different starting place. Some people are not, haven't done much of that at all. But if you put in the time and you follow the advice of people who have gone before you, who are way smarter, who are going to that aren't just out for your money, but they really care about your well-being, finding those people to help guide you along is really crucial. And then just give yourself time and put in the work, and then you'll be able to accomplish it. I really believe you can.
Yeah. The last thing I heard, or I guess the one takeaway that I have for me, is also building that team around you. And it sounds like you have a good community of people. Obviously, your wife and your kids, they were your support system through that race. And I saw that, as they were posting stuff as you were running. And I just remember seeing the joy on your face. That's why, I brought it up in the conversation the one time, because I saw it, and it just looked like you were having a good time. And so I guess that's my takeaway, is if you're going to do something like this, make sure you have a good team of people around you to support you and do it. And so, but Dave, man, it's so good, like I said, to see you, good to talk with you. Guys, thank you so much for listening today. It's always good to be with you. If you like this podcast, make sure to share it with your friends, your family. Share it with someone who is thinking about doing a marathon run. Hit us a comment. Maybe you've run marathons and you have some other tips and would like to share those tips with us. Make sure to post those down in the comments as well. But this is the Strong by Design podcast. I'm Jared Haley. So good to be with you guys. We'll catch you next time.